Hello good people of YouTube and welcome to my hobby channel and this my next Victrix Medieval Warriors unboxing video. If you watched my previous video you will know that I did an unboxing, building and scale comparison of the Victrix Medieval Foot Sergeants. I bought those, reached out to Victrix and said, love your models, is there any way you'd be happy to support me and my humble little YouTube channel? They said yes, and they sent me this free of charge. So let's get stuck in. Ta-da! Again, packed in polythene, hope the glare isn't too bad. But these are Victrix Medieval Foot Knights. These are 32 highly detailed hard plastic miniatures in 28mm scale. Somewhere I do have the Medieval Knights on horse from Victrix. I did an unbagging of those probably a year ago. Again, bought those from my friendly local gaming store. I need to try and dig those out when I've done this video so that I can bring all three elements of this range together and have a look at the kind of army, warband or force you could build with that. Again, on the cardboard topper, if you like, we've got some images of what you can build. Again, these look like they're 3D rendered. They might not be, but they have that appearance, and an illustration as well, which carries through onto the instructions. I'll just flick through these quickly because my camera tends to strobe when I open out large expanses of white paper, but you can see here the usual kind of format for Victrix instructions. It's color coded. We've got the different bodies. Each has a letter and a number as well. So B for body, obviously. 1, 2, 3, and so on. You then have the various arms and weapons and accessories that you can attach to that body, featured here. Again, color coded. B2 is green, it's green there, and really just a roadmap to help you snip off the pieces that you want from the sprue. Different heads. Again, some heads fit B5 and 6, other heads fit the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 and 8. So it's not always that straightforward, but lots of variety. And the instructions appear to be repeated on the back as well. So anyway, I refer to these when I'm building Victrix models, just so I don't make any mistakes, because you get a lot on the sprues, so, and a lot of variety. You get 4 big sprues with all the components on, and then 2 smaller shield sprues. And I do actually really like these Victrix shields a lot. So if there are any spare, I'll probably start pulling them over and using them on some of my classic Warhammer, old hammer miniatures. I really do like those. And also shields from one manufacturer used on figures from another manufacturer are a really nice way of tying the unit together if you're doing kit bashing and building a mix and match unit. So never underestimate the value of plenty of shields. So actually you get 28 shields on one sprue. Now obviously they give you more shields so that you can either lean into the kind of longer shield design there or the shorter shield designs. But that's great because there are 56 shields for 32 miniatures. I'm going to have spares. And again, it's a big sprue, very similar in layout to the Medieval Foot Sergeants that I've reviewed in my previous video. We are supplied with a body that has no legs, and then a selection of legs and feet there. Interestingly here we have a torso with raised arms, which is going to be really nice for things like you know, two-handed weapon coming down from over the head. I can only see the one torso there. I can't see another one, so I don't think that's done like that to give you additional variety or anything. I think it's done like that purely to overcome some production issues. So I think that's why that is like that. And I haven't checked the instructions or anything, but I would surmise that that was a tabard that comes down below the belt line when you assemble that miniature. This is probably one that I will choose to build in this video because it's complicated, and then I'll do this one as well with the choice of legs most likely. All the other bodies look fairly straightforward, you know, they're just kind of nice poses, some standing at the ready, others moving forward or leaning into attack. That's an interesting one there. It's got his foot on some stones or something, pebbles. And then these two, which on the face of it appear very similar in terms of their pose, actually have different fabric designs on them. It's quite a big sprue. I'm struggling to get this under the camera, but we've got heads here. Now this is interesting. This is some sort of crest, I guess you'd call it. A selection of heads there. Some fully encased in helmets, others with the faces showing. Lovely expressions again. And then over on the other side of the sprue, a range of heads with different helmet designs that probably allow you to span a broader period of history with these models. That's an interesting face there. And then another one there. Really nice Bretonian vibe to these. And of course, when I look at them as well, I'm thinking, well, you know, Crusaders. And then the rest of the sprue is packed with weapons. We've got a cross there. Oh, we've actually got a severed head there, which is a nice touch. And there's another head there, which again, if you look at the detail on the back, has been severed, but that might be a hand on top there. Obviously we've got some spears, two-handed weapons, bugle for the musician, or trumpet, or horn, swords, axes, a mace. So yeah, lovely. I really do love these miniatures from Victrix. They are really well designed, really well detailed, packed with character and heaps of potential. So I'm going to snip the bits off now that I need, according to the instructions, to make something out of those two bodies there. The one with no legs and the one that's split in half, because they look like they're probably the most complex, challenging and exciting models to build. So I will pause the video and come back when I've cut the stuff off, cleaned it up, and I'm ready to glue bits together. I'll move this out of the way in a second, but I'm building this body first, and I've had a close look at the legs, and actually it appears that the pose is the same. It's just that one set of legs appears to have some, I can't tell if it's plate armor or just fabric over the knees and chainmail beneath, whereas the other set of legs appears to be chainmail from top to bottom. That looks like it's the only difference. So it's not an alternate pose, it's an alternate options for war gear. So I'll put some glue on underneath where we've got these little shapes to key into. Now there's this leg here which fits into this vaguely hexagonal shape here. Like so. And then this leg fits onto this kind of rectangular shape behind. Like so. And there's no base with that, so it probably won't stand up. I think I'm just going to attach mine to an old Renedra base. Just for the sake of this video, an old Renedra base that I primed some miniatures on. So at least it won't keep falling over. The head I've chosen is this one. Hopefully you can see that. But I've chosen that head, a shield arm and a sword arm. I'm going to put the head on first. With the neck being covered in chainmail, it's incorporated into the body. There is less scope for positioning of the heads on that design. You can maybe twist it slightly to the left or slightly to the right, but there's not as much scope for variation there. And again, I pointed this out in my previous video where I was building the foot sergeants. Some of the body designs have a socket and the neck is on the head and you can swivel it and get some good results. Others are like this, where the neck is incorporated into the body and the head really just fits on in one position. But still, it doesn't matter, because there are plenty of different heads and plenty of different arm options to create variety. Now these are Foot Knights, so they're supposed to represent warriors that had, you know, better armor and a bit more money, I guess. But the nice thing about this set is they don't all look like nobles. So even though this is a pack of Foot Knights, this chap here could quite easily be part of the retinue of a lord, for example, or a baron or something. And I do like that, the fact that you can get a variety of different looks from this kit. It's not all knights in shining armor, you know, lots of the rich elite in one unit, which I never think looks realistic. It would be a knight surrounded by his trusted retinue and then another knight surrounded by his, and so on, even if they weren't part of the command structure. And I think this kit gives a lot of scope for that. So he just needs a shield now, but I'll stick that on a little bit later. This is the next one that I'm going to build, and as I suspected, those two funny bits of fabric were the bottom part of the tabard or the tunic that he's wearing. There is only one head that fits this body. I haven't had a chance to experiment yet, but the head that's advertised as fitting this body has a cloth cap on, and that is a chainmail hood, which I think is probably glued on, hanging down behind the neck. I've gone for the two-handed axe on mine, so I'm going to build that now. Cleaned up the parts. If you see any mold lines on any miniatures when you're building them, they're easy to remove. You don't even need to buy an expensive piece of equipment. I don't think this is too bad, but if there was one that offended me, I'd just clean it off like that, which I have done on many of my previous videos, although as I said, the Victrix ones I don't think are that bad. Right, so some glue on the hips. So it's open at the front and fits like that around the diamond shaped peg. Same with the other side. That fits on there. I'm going to put some more glue on top. Hopefully this will all come together when I place the body down. Camera in between me and the model, which doesn't help. But I like that. That's a nice fit. That looks really good. Neck is on the body. So I'm going to put some glue, just go beyond the back of the neck a little, and hopefully you'll see as I drop. Too fiddly for me. Someone in the previous video did mention that you can use some blue tack on a cocktail stick to position small parts like this. I've yet to try that. Sounds like a good idea. I'm just using the tip of a scalpel to nudge that into place. The head appears from the instructions to be the only head that will fit this body. I'm not sure why, unless it's to do with the position of the hands. But I'm happy with that. That's a nice pose. Some glue on the wrists. We'll come in with the two-handed axe and try and get that. That's nice. And there we are. Really beautiful kit. Now I'm only building 2 models in this video. There will be future videos where I'm building my medieval units, and I might even look at kit bashing, but now I want to do a quick scale comparison. The first thing I wanted to do was compare the scale of the medieval Foot Knights on the left that I've just built with the Victrix medieval foot sergeants that I built in my previous video. Obviously you can use the foot sergeants to build men-at-arms that would form part of the retinue for a medieval knight, so it's important that they go together well, and they do. I'm sure there are plenty of possibilities for mixing parts and kit bashing between those 2 sets from Victrix. What I've done here is line up the Foot Knights from Victrix with some old fighters and battle lords and retinue from Citadel Miniatures. So metal figures from the mid to late 1980s, some of which now exist as part of the ex-Citadel range in the Wargames Foundry product catalogue. So we've got the Victrix Foot Knight here, which I've put on a slaughter base just to kind of get the height roughly the same. And next to it we've got a metal battle lord or fighter from Citadel Miniatures. The next Victrix Foot Knight that I've got here, I haven't put on a slaughter base because this is the one that came with the alternate legs, and they were already beefed up a little bit under the feet because they need gluing on a base. I've got a temporary base there. I'm not entirely sure what this figure is here, holding the lance or the pike with a banner or a flag on it. It appears to be wearing a crown, so I'm assuming it's an old Citadel Battle Lord. It was released, I think, in 1987. I've had a look at the tab. There's nothing on one side and just Copyright Games Workshop or Copyright GW 1987 on the reverse. I'm tempted to paint that up as a king. Whether he becomes a king for my Bretonian army as a renegade crown, or whether he actually ends up as a figure in my historical armies, I'm not entirely sure. But I want to do something with him because I've had him long enough. And he's not seen a lick of paint yet. Next to that, we've got the Victrix Foot Sergeants that I built, and in between the two of them is a metal retainer from Citadel Miniatures, mid to late 1980s. I have a feeling this might now be available from Foundry, from Wargames Foundry, in their ex-Citadel range, as too might the retainer on the end there swinging the axe. These are lovely figures. The Victrix plastics are a tiny bit bigger, but my feeling is once all these figures are painted and kind of sprinkled in amongst each other, that probably won't be an issue. In fact, I was having this conversation earlier today. One of the things that I tend to do with my miniatures, if they're slightly different sizes and we're dealing with a little bit of scale creep, is that I put the smaller miniatures towards the back of the unit, the larger miniatures at the front of the unit, so when you actually look at the unit, it's working with the idea of perspective. You're sort of reinforcing a false perspective by putting your smaller models at the back. That makes any difference in scale less obvious, because of course as the miniatures disappear in the distance you expect them to get smaller anyway, so you can kind of work with that and trick the eye. Obviously if you're commanding the army, you're standing behind your own troops and it sort of turns the concept on its head, but really they don't look that bad if you use clever little tricks like that. The other little trick that I'll mention now, particularly if you're building with plastic miniatures, is the fact that if you're happy to do a bit of kit bashing, some head swaps, things like that, one of the biggest disruptors in scale, or the perception of scale, is the size of the head and the size of the hands. If you've got a tall figure with a bigger head or bigger hands than a short figure, it will appear to be a larger scale. So if you can swap out that head for one that's the same size as some of the smaller figures that you've purchased, it'll stop looking like a figure that's a larger scale and it'll just start looking like a tall soldier. So that's another technique that I use, and I'll be exploring that in future videos. But particularly here with like these Victrix, I mean, they work quite well with these old Citadel metals, but if I was to, I don't know, use them next to Periplastics, for example, I could either give the Periplastics a Victrix head, or I could give the Victrix miniatures a Peri head, and mix them up in that particular unit, and it would probably work quite well. At the moment, I haven't really needed to do that with these. It tends to be the old metals that cause more problems, because some are 25mm, some are 28mm. But it's just a little tip that might be useful. It's this painted miniature here, as a Citadel fighter or paladin or something. It's from an earlier series of miniatures, the sort of pre-slaughter miniatures from the early to mid 1980s. So slightly earlier than the ones that I've just shown you. You can see that knight actually looks a little bit shorter. I have just bumped the base up a little there because they're mounted on washers or plastic, round plastic bases that you get from Renedra or Warlord. And yeah, they're a little bit smaller. Personally, I still think that they could work if they were mixed in with a unit full of Foot Knights and Foot Sergeants. They may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I would certainly be quite happy to experiment with some pre-slaughter miniatures. These two, I imagine, were sculpted by the Peri twins. They tended to do a lot of this stuff in the early days of Citadel, and yeah, whether or not they're historically accurate, I don't know, but I do think they fit quite nicely in amongst the modern plastics. I think the Foot Knight on the end here is probably a FireForge Foot Knight. Although it's been a while since I built that one, so I'm not entirely sure. The head is slightly smaller than the Victrix head, but only ever so slightly. And then I've got a Claymore Castings metal sandwiched between these two Victrix Foot Knights here. To the other side, I've got a Wargames Atlantic. This is a classic fantasy guard. Love this figure. It's an excellent kit. And to show you were the two Victrix Foot Knights that I've done there, either side of some Perry Agincourt miniatures. If we come this way, I've got some more Wargames Atlantic Foot Knights here. These I think are from the Baron's War range. Just elevated the base slightly. You can see it's lifted off the surface of the cutting mat there, just to try and bring them in line with the height of the Victrix miniatures. I think these work really well. If anything, I did think the Baron's War figures were a little bit on the small side. But once you get them lined up, once you get them grouped together, as I have done here, I really don't think it's that much of an issue. And just for a bit of fun, I've got a Perry miniature in the middle there. I think it might be... I think the body might be from the War of the Roses. Maybe the helmet is too. It shows the kind of fun you can have when you're kit bashing. So that's a solitary Perry War of the Roses miniature that's been kit bashed and converted in amongst the Victrix Foot Knights and Foot Sergeants. And finally, just to finish off with, I wanted to show them lined up against some Bretonian Foot Knights, which, as you would expect, are considerably larger than their historical equivalents. However, before I finish off this video, I will show you my unit of Bretonian Foot Knights, because what I've done here is I've taken some FireForge Foot Knights, the miniatures here that you can see with a little bit of green stuff on the bases and on the shoulders. And I have combined those FireForge Foot Knights with some Bretonian Foot Knight parts to create this idea of some noble knights fighting alongside their retinue. So although I'm not proposing that you mix the Victrix figures directly with the Bretonian Foot Knights as I've done here, I think there are some kit bashing opportunities if you're looking to add a bit of variety to your Warhammer the Old World Bretonian units. And there is my unit of Bretonian Foot Knights mixed together with some FireForge Foot Knights that have been kit bashed with Bretonian Foot Knight parts. Hopefully, even though I've not got round to painting this unit yet, you can see the kind of aesthetic that I was going for. And also, incidentally, I've managed to turn a unit of 10 Bretonian Foot Knights into a unit of 18 Bretonian Foot Knights by including some of their converted retinue. I think that works really well. I think it adds flavour. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it certainly brings to the table that kind of rough and ready look that you would have with a medieval unit or warband marching into battle. And it's certainly something that I find more pleasing to the eye than just a unit of lots of knights in shiny armour gathered together in a formation that you might never have actually seen in real life. So it's something that I'm leaning into, and I think both the Victrix Foot Knights and the Victrix Foot Sergeants would actually work quite well with a Bretonian army if you're looking to fill out your units of Games Workshop miniatures with proxy miniatures or miniatures that perhaps don't cost quite as much. Whether it's fantasy or historical miniatures that you're into modelling and gaming with, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please smash that like button. Please hit subscribe for more videos like this. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do, but keep those comments kind and respectful. As always, thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.